And we're going to talk more about MySQL, Cloud Native, Kubernetes, and all that jazz. So one thing I think it's very interesting when you get those presentation following one another, because when I'm going to talk about the variants, I'm not going to include the juju you just seen presentation about, and that's probably good. But I also want to say why, right? I think it's interesting for me looking at that the solution as it's not very clear, kind of from a glance view, what exactly connection it has to Kubernetes, right? Yes, I mean, you can go ahead and deploy kind of is Jujunified Kubernetes kind of in a Ubuntu ecosystem, but it was not very clear for me to what extent it is designed or not to be just used with, just your, Kubernetes out there, right? Is Juju, can it be used with something like if you look at that better Helm, if you like, right, with like any Kubernetes cluster, right? Or is that sort of like a completely separate ecosystem? That's why I did not didn't include it. Okay, well, about the cloud native MySQL. Let me ask you folks, like when somebody is saying, hey guys, cloud native MySQL, what does it mean for you? Anyone?
RDS.
Huh?
RDS.
RDS, yes, that's right. So like if you guys have been drinking, skipping too much. If you guys have been reading marketing materials, right? A lot of big cloud vendors tell you, hey guys, right? If you really want to run MySQL in a cloud native way, that has to be, fully managed MySQL solution, and that means don't do it yourself, but rather bring your buckets of money, so we take here, right? I was asking my joining in this case to illustrate that. What how do you have like engineers DBA relationship with the cloud vendors, right? And I don't know why, but I think they say we are encouraging us to sell our soul to the devil. Right, and kind of give all our freedom away, right, and whatever. Well, anyway, I'm biased open source dude, right? So, and of course, this is one way, and that works for many, and that is a very common one. But that is obviously not a way I am going to talk about. I want to say there is another way, right? There is another way to approach running MySQL, in a cloud native. Yes, you just had to take that picture, right? And that would be the cloud native as a folks in a cloud native foundation looks to and think about it. Now, the thing about the Cloud Native Foundation, that is very much the open source ecosystem. Obviously, they do not have as much marketing money as all our wonderful big cloud vendors combined, right? So, well, it may not be as common choice, but I think that can be the smart choice in many cases. The underpinning the cloud native solutions is, well, you guessed it, that is the Kubernetes. It kind of looks much better, my slide is kind of ugly a little bit here, but well, you just forgive me. Well, the thing about the Kubernetes, not because it is great, right? Like I think there's so many people, especially I think coming out from the stateful applications say, oh, Kubernetes, that is kind of something that was really designed for stateless applications. However, you could use something like that for databases. But well, that was a long time ago, right? It evolved a lot, right? And the thing about the Kubernetes is what that has momentum right now, right? There have been a number of solutions, right? And some of you maybe remember messes, right? Or there has been, Pivotal Bosch, right? Or there was Rancher, right? And I think a number of you may say, well, there have been certain technological things that have been better, but you know what? It's like sort of like Linux and FreeBSD, right? Kind of, yes, maybe it was kind of better in certain cases, but the Linux has won mind share, and I think the Kubernetes is in a very similar situation right now when it goes to this particular environment. And Kubernetes is obviously ubiquitous, right? You can run it on any cloud. As you have seen, you can run it on your laptop. It's available on the edge, and so on and so forth. Okay, well, so let's go back to the MySQL and how can you run MySQL on Kubernetes, right? If you look at that kind of a pretty two big different ways you can approach that is you can actually run regular containers, pretty much regular containers on the Kubernetes, or you can choose to run that through the operator, right? And that is essentially another piece of software which manages a lot of stuff, MySQL for you. Now, you also have the choice either to deploy the MySQL with kubectl, right, with a bunch of YAML files, or you can also use a Kubernetes package manager, Helm, right, as a package, right? And if you look at majority of the Kubernetes-focused MySQL solutions out there, they typically allow you to deploy it two ways, right? Wherever is more convenient, convenient for you. Now, there are, thankfully, or maybe not so thankfully, many ways to run MySQL on Kubernetes, right? Over the last few years, there have been a number of solutions developed, and I will cover the few more of them, right, which I have seen being used, but again, that's not going to be particularly exhaustive, right? If you look at Kubernetes and MySQL on GitHub, you can find probably much more stuff than you ever want to experiment with. The first way I would start with is the MySQL tutorial on Kubernetes. Actually, if you look at the Kubernetes, they show MySQL as example of a stateful application where you can, basically implement their YAML file with its definition, right, and deploy MySQL. Fred, what is a bug do you see here?
A bug?
You're using password as password.
But password is nice.
MySQL 5.6.
MySQL 5.6, yes. I was saying like a bug which is worthy of the community managers, right? Maybe you need to...
It's an error.
What?
It's an error.
It's an error, not a bug.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that. Yes.
Kubernetes should refuse that.
Yes. You know what you can see is what in Oracle community team reports to marketing. It's an error, not a bug. Well, anyway, I think it was fascinating to me to see, like, wow, we used 5.6, which was like, end of life so long ago. Now, I think what is also what that we can highlight here, right? And I think that is important thing with what I speak about the Kubernetes being stateless, right? What if you deploy stateful applications, right? You may need to make sure to store data in some sort of persistent volume, at very least, right? Otherwise, you may be sorry. Okay.
It's the error number one in the forums.
Stop.
Is the error number one on the forums? Oh, I'm using MySQL Kubernetes. I stop all the nodes. My data is over. I lost all my data. Yes. The answer is yes.
Yes. Well, you can tell them, well, you can send this amount of Bitcoin to this wallet, and he'll promise you to restore it, right? Can be a good side business for someone, right? Well, anyway, the idea in this case, and I think this is kind of applies to many things in Kubernetes, and probably not only Kubernetes, right? If you want to play, it's very easy. Hey, I want to play with MySQL on Kubernetes, I can just, boom, roll out the container, looks very simple, very nice, good to play, but that is, of course, not nearly ready for production use. So let's look at what exists kind of in a more production way. The other approach you can use is Bitnami's Helm chart, right, which can deploy the MySQL with asynchronous replication. It has been around again for many years. It's rather mature. It has a lot of configuration options in this case, right? The thing to think about that, though, it's is mostly focused on a deployment, right? It is not really focused as a robust, a complete lifecycle solution, right? And then that is where I like to think very separately about the development and production, right? Because in development, we can live in day one all the time, right? Hey, you know what? Something got broken. We want to change something. Let's scrap it and redeploy again. In our production databases, they spend 99.9% of their life in a day two, right? I mean, we don't want our data to disappear and came back to initial state. We need that data to be stored. We need that to be online, going through like many major version upgrades, scales, right, and backup restores, and so on and so forth, right? And that is something which is best implemented by operator in Kubernetes environment, right? I think the operator is a very fitting term, because what operator means is saying, hey, well, you know what we used to do many ages ago, right? We manually, right, type in different commands, and now, Linux VM deployments. Now we expect all that kind of human operators tasks to be automated in the on the operator framework, and that is where we can cover a lot of the data logic. Especially, I think here we have to consider what the databases often can be quite complicated beasts, right? Like, what do you really need to upgrade the database, right? Hey, you do this kind of like a node by node, right? And hopefully also if something goes wrong, you know what you have to, roll back, right? And not leave your cluster with kind of half upgraded state and so on and so forth, right? There are also things like, healing, self-healing, which you want to prepare to do automatically, if pod storage or something fails. And that is all can be implemented as an operator. Now, my take is because of that, if you're looking for really your production deployment for MySQL, other stateful applications, you want really operators which understand particular nuances, how that stateful application needs to be managed, right? Because typically, hey, let's deploy 5 copies, it is not going to work. Okay. Let's now look at the operators. What do we have? Well, guess what? Now, and actually like for almost 2 years now, we have an official operator for MySQL. That is wonderful because it was interesting path there, right? There was an Oracle operator kind of a few years back, or maybe kind of, let's say, somebody's project, and then it was kind of dead for a few years until that project was kind of again rewritten from scratch, right? It's based on the MySQL group replication, uses a MySQL query router, right? I think as we have seen here before. What is also interesting in this case, it relies on the MySQL shell a lot and is generally implemented in Python. This is relatively unusual, I would say, in a Kubernetes and an operator lang, right? Where Golang is very common. What is also interesting in this case, and I think this is, to me, was kind of fun, how funny I think this kind of like a good open source guys at Oracle trying to navigate the path between Oracle backup being kind of enterprise, right? Because we have on one side, we have a text backups supported by a MySQL shell. On the other hand, you can also actually use clone, and there is like a very small text out there. You can also use that as a backup. Just don't tell anyone. Right, so it kind of supports their binary backup through the clone solution as well, but as if I think all the MySQL ecosystem, it's kind of slightly unofficial. What I think it does not quite support, what I found, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, is their kind of streaming binlog backups, right, for point in time recovery. Another interesting thing in this case where I think the big Oracle needed to make its mark is what it uses the UPL, Universal Permissive License, right? Which is, again, I wouldn't say it's a bad license, though I'm not a lawyer, but that is also like relatively unconventional in their Kubernetes, right, and operator ecosystems. And that is also different from the rest of MySQL, which mostly uses GPL. So this is their just image, which I thought like some very good work from the implementation folks about how the operator operates, right? And you can see the bunch of components out there. Okay, then there are Percona operators, very near and dear to my heart, right? And we just don't have one, we have two of them. We have one operator which existed as GA for many years. It uses on their Percona XPDB cluster, uses Galera replication. And then we also have in a preview, beta, whatever, Percona server-based operator, right, which is using their conventional replication builder in MySQL. Another differentiator of a Percona's operator, we have we use HA proxy, like or proxy SQL for load balancer. You have this choice. We have support for backups with point in time recovery, right? We actually would stream with binary logs, right, or something like a S3 storage, right? And if a node dies completely, right, you can restore up to the last, couple of seconds or something like that. And we also have a multi-cluster support, right, where we have a lot of people saying, hey, you know what, we like having a PXE cluster in the Kubernetes, but you know what, Kubernetes cluster itself is a failure domain. We want to make sure we have something for DR, right, and then you can have a node or a cluster in another Kubernetes cluster or other region, right, for availability. The next one to mention is Bespokes, right, or operator created by Press Labs. This is an operator which came to market even before Percona's operator. It uses MySQL asynchronous application. The Press Labs initially built it to support their large-scale WordPress hosting, right? And then it uses Percona server for MySQL and async replication. Underneath it has, a lot of, I would say, like advanced replication features. Like, well, if one of the replicas is going to fall behind, we kind of feel, remove it from rotation for read traffic and so on and so forth. The bad thing about this is it kind of has been in maintenance mode, right? There's just a handful of commits to that last year. Another operator to mention is an operator called Moco by this company Kubernetes, right? Which they built for their internal needs, right? So it's not like a product built specifically for customers, but they are doing a very good job in this case, right? I think it's very well documented. The code is very well, and this is based on a semi-sync replication, right? So if you want something with a semi-sync replication support to run on Kubernetes, that can be a solution, right? And that's also heavily leverages MySQL shell for a lot of operations out there. Okay. Now, the next one is, well, something we also spoke today about, right? It's a question how we include that, because on one extent, Vitess is not quite MySQL, right? It's, hey, it's dropping for any MySQL reload, but also in many cases that can be seen as a better MySQL, right? Especially as we look at that killer feature, which is sharding. And I think what is also in this case, it's interesting what the Vitess itself, and of course it's like operators with that, right, is their CNCF project, right? So it's kind of, I would say, the most closed part, the most close to that CNCF ecosystem, right, compared to their other solutions I have mentioned. Now, one of the things, if we look back at that comparison thing, well, if you think about like an RDS, Aurora, Oracle Cloud managed solutions, right? How that compares to Kubernetes, you'll see, well, UX is kind of different, right? In this case, and from our side, we are kind of continue working on figuring out how we can provide more of a easy UX, kind of database as a service like UX in Kubernetes environment, right? I mean, if you have seen me talking about this topic in some other conferences for years, we had previously had it part as a PMM project, right? We since have decided it's better to separate that, right? And now it's separated in a project called Percona Everest, right? Which allows you to really provide that kind of graphical user interface and command line to manage their database or with a Kubernetes backend, right? And which can integrate with PMM for observability, but does not require that. Well, and to finish up, I wanted to get, let's say, one more question, right? To that question about their topic of solving the stateless Kubernetes problem, right? So I would want to say with our engineering team, they want to put that on a T-shirt for KubeCon. Do you guys think that's a good idea?
Yes.
Bad idea?
Yes.
Who thinks that's a good idea? Who thinks that's a bad idea? Bad idea. Oh, look at that. Yeah, but he's biased. Well, and you know what? We have our CEO in the room, right? And I'm sure she is taking notice. Well, with that, that's all I have. We also have a public blog post on this topic. If you guys want to get some more information, here is a link, QR code for you. Yeah, and that's it.
Thank you very much.